Imagine, just for a moment, that you are totally lost. But not just lost in a city or a dense forest. You are lost inside a hallucination.
Right, the kind of hallucination that feels way more real than your waking life.
Exactly. And you are wandering through a landscape that is just, it's actively hostile. There's a wind pushing you so hard against your back that you physically cannot turn around.
You're just being forced forward into the unknown. It's the ultimate point of no return.
Yeah, and the obstacles, they just keep getting stranger. So right off the bat, you encounter this massive lion, an old lion with yellow hair.
And you can't just walk past it.
No, you have to fight it. You rip it open, and inside, instead of guts or organs, you find snow white bones and red blood. But you keep going.
Because of the wind.
Right. Next, you find yourself walking on a wall that is razor thin. It's hundreds of feet high, but the path is barely a foot wide. One slip, and you're gone.
It sounds like an absolute high-anxiety nightmare. You know, the kind where you wake up sweating?
It really does. And it gets even more bizarre. You finally reach a garden, you pick a lock with a skeleton key, and you find a pair of lovers locked inside a crystal prison.
Just hanging out in a crystal prison?
Well, they embrace so hard that they literally melt into liquid. They rot, they turn completely black, and then, from that black sludge, a king rises from the dead, stronger and more powerful than before.
I mean, that sounds like an avant-garde horror movie.
It is a fever dream, basically. But this is a specific parable. It's found in an old Rosicrucian text. And today, we're doing a deep dive into a book that claims this story isn't about magic or wizards at all.
All right.
It claims it's a technical manual for the human mind.
Which brings us to our source for this deep dive. We are looking at Hidden Symbolism of Alchemy and the Occult Arts. It was written in 1917 by Dr. Herbert Silberer.
And this book is, I mean, it's a heavy hitter.
Oh, absolutely. It's dense, it's strange, but it is brilliant. Silberer's is such an interesting guide for us here because he's straddling two worlds that normally do not talk to each other.
Yeah, on one hand, you have the ancient mystical world of alchemy. You know, people in robes trying to turn lead into gold.
Right, the classic image. And on the other hand, you have the brand new, highly clinical world of psychoanalysis in early 20th century Vienna.
Which is such a wild contrast.
It is, but that context is vital. Silberer was actually part of Freud's inner circle. He was right there in the room when modern psychology was being invented.
But he was also completely obsessed with these old, dusty texts about magic.
Exactly. And his central argument, the whole mission of our deep dive today, is that these two completely different groups were actually doing the exact same thing.
Which, just on the face of it, sounds absurd. One group is in a lab with beakers and literal fires, and the other is in a sterile clinic with a notebook and a therapy couch.
True. But Silberer argues that the great work of the alchemists transmuting base metals into gold was never actually about the metal.
It was a projection.
Yes. They were projecting their internal psychological drama right onto the chemicals bubbling in front of them. So, turning lead into gold was really a coded manual for turning a broken human psyche into a perfected one.
So when we read about fighting yellow lions or lovers melting in crystal, we're actually reading a guide on how to fix ourselves.
Precisely. It's a guide to what Silberer calls the royal art of self-transformation. And to really grasp it, we need to walk through that parable you started with.
Okay, let's do it.
Silberer treats that Rosicrucian story exactly like a patient's dream on his therapy couch. He deconstructs it, symbol by symbol.
Let's get into the weeds then. The story starts with a wanderer entering a forest. He's looking for something called the Meadow of Felicity.
Which is our first major symbol. In almost every mythology, fairy tale, and certainly in Freudian dream analysis, the forest represents the unconscious.
It's dark, it's untamed.
Right, you don't know what's living in there. The wanderer is your conscious mind trying to navigate the depths of your own psyche.
And immediately he gets pushed by that wind. He can't go back.
That is the compulsion. Once a psychological crisis begins, or once you really start asking those big, terrifying questions about who you are, you can't just pretend it isn't happening.
We can't unsee it.
Exactly. The wind drives you inward. You have to go through it. And the first thing he meets is that lion.
Right. And the text is very specific here. It's an old lion, fierce, with yellow hair. The wanderer actually tries to pet it at first, but that doesn't work. He has to kill it.
Silberer looks at this through a strictly Freudian lens.
Yeah.
In dream logic, large, powerful animals, especially the game of beasts, represent the father figure, or just authority in general.
So the yellow hair, the age, all of that.
It's the patriarch. It represents the rules and structures imposed on you.
So killing the lion is The Oedipus complex.
In a metaphorical sense, yeah. It's not about literal violence against your dad. It's about dismantling the internal authority figure. To become an adult, to become the king of your own life, you have to break down the authority that ruled over you as a child.
You have to stop seeking approval.
Exactly. You have to take dominion.
It's interesting, though, that he tries to pet it first. Like, nice kitty, please don't hurt me.
Which is such a human reaction. He tries to placate the authority. But you can't grow up by just being nice to the forces holding you back. You have to confront them head on.
Which definitely explains the violence.
Yeah.
He rips the lion open, and inside he finds red blood and white bones.
You really have to pay attention to those colors. Red and white, those are the two primary colors of alchemy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Red usually symbolizes the active male principle, the blood, the life force. White is the passive female principle, the structure, the bone.
So by ripping the lion open...
The wanderer is separating these primal forces. He is analyzing them.
And analyze literally means to loosen or break apart.
Yes. He is deconstructing the authority figure to see exactly what it's made of. He's looking at the component parts of his own upbringing. But once he does that, the safety is completely gone. That is when he hits the wall.
Oh, man. This part gives me vertigo just reading it. He's on a wall over 100 ells high, but the path is not 1 foot wide.
It's terror.
And there's a railing right in the center, making it even narrower. He has to choose between the right path, which the text says is difficult, and the left path, which looks extremely dangerous.
This whole sequence creates a feeling of intense anxiety. And Silberer identifies this wall as the censor.
You might need to define that for us, because usually when we hear censor, we think of someone crossing out bad words in a letter or blurring things on TV.
Right, but in psychoanalysis, the censor is an internal mechanism. It is the barrier between your conscious mind, the polite, civilized, good you, and your unconscious mind, which is just full of raw, dark, illicit desires.
The stuff you don't want to admit you think about.
Exactly. Silberer calls these Titan impulses.
Titans, like from the Greek myths.
Yeah, the Titans were the chaotic, destructive giants that the gods had to overthrow to build civilization. We all have Titans in our basement. Rage, lust, selfishness, the sheer desire to destroy.
And the censor keeps them locked up.
Right. So walking that razor-thin wall is the literal anxiety of trying to stay moral when you are hovering right above your own darkness.
It's that feeling when you have a terrible intrusive thought and you just think, whoa, where did that come from?
Exactly. And the wanderer actually slips. He grabs the railing and he hangs over the left side.
And the left usually means something very specific in these old occult texts, doesn't it?
Yes. The left, or the sinister path, is almost always a symbol for the forbidden. In this context, it often implies sexual taboos or just the things society flat out tells us not to touch.
But interestingly, hanging off that ledge, dangling right into the forbidden, is exactly how he finds the entrance to the garden.
He had to risk falling to find the door. You don't find the real answers by staying safely on the narrow moral path. You have to dangle over the abyss of the unconscious.
Wow. So he gets down, he finds a lock, a gate, and he uses a Diederik, which is an old term for a master key or skeleton key to pick the lock. He breaks into the rose garden.
Now, Silberer does not mince words here. The symbolism turns very sexual very quickly. The garden, the locked gate, the skeleton key. These are classic textbook dream symbols for the female body, specifically the womb.
So the wanderer is breaking into a forbidden private space of creation.
Right.
And inside, he finds the lovers, a youth and a maiden. But the text implies they are closely related, brother and sister, or maybe even mother and son.
Which brings us to the absolute most difficult part of the text, the incest motive.
Right. This is where most listeners might just recoil, like, why is this in a story about spiritual growth? Silberer claims this isn't about literal physical desire, right?
No, not at all. And it's crucial we understand this distinction. Silberer is talking about introversion in the Jungian or alchemical sense.
How is that different from just being an introvert who likes staying home and reading books on a Friday night?
Introversion here means turning your psychic energy inward. When the external world gets too hard, when the lion is too fierce or the wall is just too high, the human psyche has a natural tendency to retreat. We want to go back to where it was safe.
Back to the source.
Back to the mother.
So it's retreat to the womb, like a desire to be unborn.
In a way, yes. It's what Freudians call a regression fantasy. You want to reset the game. But, and this is the entire key to alchemy, you don't go back just to hide. You go back to be reborn.
That's a huge difference. Hiding versus rebooting.
Exactly. In the story, the lovers are punished for their incest. They are locked in a crystal prison.
Which is basically a transparent sphere, like a test tube or a giant beaker.
Or an alchemical retort. It's an artificial womb. Silberer points out that this prison creates a perfectly sealed environment where a transformation can actually happen.
And what happens inside is...
Yeah.
Honestly, it's gross. I mean, there's no other word for it. The lovers embrace, they melt down into liquid, and then they start to rot. The text literally says they turn black and stink.
This is the Negrito, the black stage.
We should pause on the stages for a second because this seems to be the core insight of the whole book. The alchemists had a color-coded system for transformation, didn't they?
They did, and it maps perfectly to human psychology. The first stage is Negrito blackness. This is putrefaction.
The rot.
Right. In psychological terms, this is depression. This is the breakdown. The old ego, the old identity has to completely die. It has to rot away.
That's a really hard sell for self-improvement. Hey, to get better, first you have to feel like you're rotting.
It is the dark night of the soul. You have to face the decay of your old self. You cannot skip it. If you try to skip the rot, you never get the gold. In the story, the wanderer has to sit there and just watch it happen. He has to keep the prison warm with a gentle fire.
He's tending the process. He can't look away, but he can't intervene either.
He's maintaining the introversion. He's holding the space for his own breakdown. If he breaks the glass too early, the entire process fails.
Then comes the next stage. The mist inside the glass rises and falls like dew, washing the black bodies until they turn completely white.
This is the albedo, the white stage, purification. The rot is finally washed away. Clarity begins to emerge. The conflicting parts of the self, the male and female, the red and white, they've melted down and are now being purified into something totally new.
And finally, life returns. But they aren't two people anymore. They're one single being. A king dressed in red.
The rubido. The red stage, the color of true gold. This is the resurrected self. The king is the wanderer, but fully transformed. He went back to the beginning, dissolved his old limitations in the womb of the prison, and reconstituted himself as something greater.
It's such a powerful narrative. It's basically the Phoenix myth, but with more chemistry sets and weird biological metaphors.
And much, much more psychology. Silberer's point is that the alchemists projected this internal drama onto their chemicals. When they saw the black dross rotting in their crucible, they literally felt their own depression. And when they saw the gold crystallize, they felt their own spiritual enlightenment.
So the guys who were just trying to get rich, the sloppers, they were missing the point entirely.
Completely. The sloppers took the text literally. They boiled lead, they glue up their labs, they poisoned themselves. The true philosophers, the adepts, they knew that the Philosopher's Stone was a spiritual state.
Which brings up Ethan Allen Hitchcock, right?
Yes. Hitchcock was a major influence on Silberer. He famously said, the subject is man, meaning all these ancient texts about metals and fires were always about human consciousness.
But speaking of taking things literally, there's one detail in this book that we absolutely have to talk about because it's wildly bizarre. The homunculus.
Ah, yes. The artificial man.
This sounds like pure science fiction, but it is right there in the texts. Paracelsus, one of the most famous alchemists in history, gave a literal step-by-step recipe for creating a human being without a woman.
And the recipe is, well, it's very evocative.
It's incredibly specific. You take human biological material, specifically semen. You put it in a glass vessel, you seal it up tight, and you bury it in, wait for it, horse manure.
For 40 days.
Right, 40 days. The manure provides the constant heat, and eventually, according to Paracelsus, a little transparent man starts to move around inside the jar. You feed it the arcanum of human blood for 40 weeks, and boom, you have a homunculus, a tiny artificial human.
Now, why on earth would Silberer include this deeply weird recipe in a book about psychological symbolism?
Right.
Because it connects perfectly back to the parable we just discussed.
How so? Aside from the sealed glass vessel.
Look at the mechanics. You have the sealed glass, that is the crystal prison. You have the horse manure, which generates steady heat through decomposition. That acts as the artificial womb. It's the exact same roasting process the wanderer had to perform in the garden.
Oh, wow. So the homunculus is just another version of the rebirth.
It is, but it reveals the titan nature of alchemy. It represents the ultimate male desire to bypass nature entirely, to create life without the mother, to be the sole, unquestioned creator.
It's the ultimate ego trip. I don't need biology. I have science. I have art.
Exactly. Silberer argues that this is the shadow side of the alchemical dream. It's the desire to play God. But in the context of self-development, it reinforces this idea of self-creation. The king that rises from the dead is, in a way, a homunculus. He's a being created through art and conscious processing, not just born randomly of nature.
You mentioned titans earlier, those raw, destructive impulses, and now we have horse manure and rotting bodies. It feels like alchemy is just totally obsessed with the gross stuff.
That is the critical observation of the whole text. And it ties into the most famous phrase in all of occultism, which Silberer analyzes brilliantly at the end of the book. As above, so below.
We hear that in movies all the time, but what does it actually mean in this context?
It comes from the Smaragdine tablet, the emerald tablet of Hermes Trismegistus, which is basically the core scripture of alchemy. In Silberer's synthesis, it explains exactly why we need the manure to get the gold. What is lower is just like what is higher.
So the spiritual gold, the highest part of us, is directly connected to the biological slime.
You cannot separate them. This is Silberer's grand synthesis. You cannot have the higher ethical character without the lion, the primal animal instinct. You cannot have the resurrection without the putrefaction.
This feels incredibly modern. We live in a culture that loves good vibes only. We want the gold without the rot.
Precisely. And alchemy says that is impossible. You have to acknowledge your titan impulses, the repressed, dark, slimy, lower parts of yourself. You have to face them in order to transmute them. The alchemists called this sublimation. You take the lower energy and refine it into higher energy.
So when the wanderer goes into the garden, picks the lock, and just sits there watching the bodies rot, that's not him being a pervert or a weirdo. That's him doing the actual work.
That is the introversion. He is diving into the slime of his own unconscious to find the hidden seed of the king.
It puts a whole new spin on the idea of finding yourself. It's not looking in a mirror, it's digging through a grave.
A grave that eventually becomes a cradle. Remember, in the story, the bodies rot, but then the mist rises and falls as a fruitful dew that brings them back to life.
It's a constant cycle.
It is the cycle of nature, but it's accelerated by art or by consciousness.
So let's bring this home for everyone listening. What does this mean for you? Obviously, we aren't boiling lead, and I certainly hope no one listening is burying jars in horse manure.
I highly advise against the horse manure. But think about the structure of the parable. It's a map for dealing with a crisis.
Oh, so?
Look at the wanderer. He is stuck. He's anxious. He's facing a line he can't control. What does he do? He doesn't run away. He engages. He retreats inward, what we call introversion. He allows his old self to completely fall apart. He endures the suffering of the black stage, all so that he can reemerge as something stronger.
It's a protocol for resilience.
And for taking responsibility. Remember, the wanderer felt responsible for the lovers in the prison. He had to actively tend the fire. He couldn't just walk away and hope for the best. We have to tend the fire of our own transformation. It's active work. You are the scientist in your own lab.
Silberer really makes you respect these old alchemists. They weren't just primitive chemists getting everything wrong. They were pioneer psychologists getting it right, just using a totally different vocabulary.
Yeah, they were pioneers of the inner world. They saw the drama of the human soul playing out in their crucibles. And Silberer tragically knew this better than anyone. He actually ended his own life not long after writing this book. He was a man deeply, deeply acquainted with the darkness.
Wow. It adds such a heavy layer to the text. He walked that razor-thin wall himself.
He did. And he left us this incredible map.
So to wrap this deep dive up, the parable is a journey. Whether you use the language of Freud's subconscious desires, the Oedipus complex, repression, or the language of alchemy transmuting lead, fighting lions, finding the philosopher's stone, the ultimate goal is exactly the same.
Breaking down the old self to build a king.
It really makes you wonder what our modern alchemy is. What are the codes we use today to describe this exact same process? Maybe it's mindset, maybe it's biohacking, or maybe it's just going to therapy.
That is the big question, and I'd leave you with this final thought. If the philosopher's stone isn't a magical rock, but the perfected human conscience, then the laboratory isn't a physical place you go. It's what you are.
We are the vessel.
Exactly. The question isn't whether you have the right equipment. The question is, are you brave enough to face the lion? And are you brave enough to sit with the rod? Because that is the absolute only way to get to the gold.
That is a lot to process. I think I need to go sit with my own titans for a bit.
Well, good luck with that.
Thanks for taking us on this journey into the hidden symbolism of the mind. We'll see you on the next deep dive. Keep tending that fire.